Welcome, Wargamers, to the big and tall section of the Mortal Realms, because today we are taking a story straight out of the Sons of Behemat battle tome, and it's called The Deeds of Behemat. So, just to kind of give you a little bit of context, for those of you who are fairly new to the game, when Age of Sigmar launched, the story arc at the time was called the Realmgate Wars. And in that story, we meet this god titan-sized beast named Behemat, who's basically out unconscious, so large in fact that he formed a mountain range and all these things. I'm not going to spoil that story for you. I do have a great breakdown of the Realmgate Wars. I believe this one is specifically in the book Godbeast, if you want to go catch that one. But in that arc, what's really important here is that we have no idea how he got there. We know there's some scant story, but whatever. When the Sons of Behemat battle tome dropped, this story is the only clues that we have. And again, the story is called The Deeds of Behemat. It's in the Age of Myth section in their timeline, which in their book is called The Stamp of History. I love it. And it goes: Gorka Morka's gleeful rampage sours when the Chaos Gods convince him he's doing the bidding of Sigmar rather than acting of his own volition. He sees Behemat going about his business without a care, eating his fill and getting larger with every passing winter, and resolves to set the Godbeast a series of tasks. Behemat somehow manages to succeed every single one of them, sometimes even on purpose. Then, Gorka Morka challenges him to fight Sigmar. It does not end well, and Behemat is smote by Gal Miraz, staggering away to disgorge hundreds of lesser gargants across Verdia, before finally falling into a comatose state that lasts for hundreds of years. Gorka Morka takes some brief satisfaction in the fact before realizing he is now bereft of his strongest and most trustworthy ally. So there's actually a lot to take in here. I actually paused halfway through telling the story to be like, did I already read this one? Am I just going crazy now? But it's because they mentioned Gorka Morka being somewhat, not tempted by the Chaos Gods, but that's actually a thing we hit on talking about the Orc War Clans battle tome that just came out. For some reason, I missed it in the Sons of Behemat book, and I didn't see it until I was reading the Orc War Clans ones. I'm like, oh, this has already been here. That's super cool. That is the idea that, they weren't twisting Gorka Morka to join the pantheon of Chaos Gods or anything like that, but it was more just sowing discontent, right? The seeds that would eventually blossom to shattering the entire, alliance of gods that were keeping chaos at bay. So I was going to point that out initially as oh, this is an interesting thing, and then I realized we had just talked about it. Now, one thing I do like here is the depiction between what we know as a deity, meaning Gorka Morka in this instance, and the Godbeasts, because realistically, the only ones that we have outside of this are Sigmar and the Dracothian. Of course, that's how we have not dragons in Stormcast Eternals. Ignax was used to basically firestorm a whole bunch of people. I think that was Ignax. But I mean, my point is, we don't see a lot of interaction between them, with the notable exception of Stormcast. But here we have an example of the gods know the Godbeasts are out there. They've met them. Some of them are cool, like Dracothian. And Behemat, honestly, he seems like a pretty chill guy. He was just doing his own thing until Gorka Morka set him a challenge he couldn't do. And about those tasks, right, those challenges, I'm really curious to know what the other ones were. Because if you're not familiar, when it comes to forces of destruction, specifically orcs and goblins and stuff like that, they see physical manifestations of their god in natural formation. So for example, there's a huge crevasse in Gur, and they say it's because Gorka Morka drug his toenail through the earth itself, right? It's this big grandiose mythos for a natural formation. Well, I wonder how many of these tasks, just given Behemat's massive stature, I'm going to go into that more in a second here, but his actions must have had geological consequences. So I'm curious, what I'm saying is, what do destructions see about Gorka Morka through the actions of his servant, who is just so large that he's going to have these kind of footprints, for lack of a better word, all around everything he touches? To me, this is a side story that firmly puts the Gargants into Gorka Morka's camp, because the two are now then, in the Age of Myth, now fast forwarded hundreds of years, indistinguishable. You can't tell which ones Behemat did, which ones Gorka Morka did, but you know which one of them is more powerful. But I digress. That's just, I wanted to point out that is a unique relationship, all things considered. What I love is that he then challenges him to fight Sigmar, and here's how I picture this, right? For some reason, in my mind, like Sigmar is just walking around someplace nebulous, just strolling, and all of a sudden a huge fist just comes out of the sky and just punches him. Like he didn't even know he was walking in the squared circle. And I can't decide what I want more, because there's no detail about the nature of their fight. You know, like when Sigmar fought Gorka Morka, it went on for days, and when Volcatrix and Grimnir fought, it took days, and they leveled mountains. There's none of that detail or flavor given here. All we know is he punched Sigmar, and then Sigmar was like, nah, bro, and then just hit him in the head so hard with a hammer, he cold-cocked him in one go. That is equally a possibility as, like, a struggle between a god of man and gargants that lasts for days and levels parts of Azir. Like, none of that detail is given, so I like to think he just punched Sigmar. Sigmar went flying like a Dragon Ball Z thing, parallel with the earth, smashing through mountains, comes right back, cold cocks him with the hammer, Behemat goes down. I just think that would be the most epic and hilarious fight ever. But that is, of course, conjecture. But one thing I do find interesting, though, is that there was something about Behemat that I don't truly have a lot of information on. That is, when he is hit, he starts disgorging lots and lots of mega gargants. Now, there was this idea that he kind of like forms them in his gullet kind of a thing and spits them out. But it's not touched on much because the mega gargants and stuff, they're not really tied to Ghiran, which is, I believe, where he ended up. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. But I mean, essentially, this is their creation myth, right? He got hit so hard, he just burst forth with his offspring all the way everywhere across the seas of stars, and finally collapses. Over hundreds of years, growth starts to form over his body, whole forest blossom, and what was once a body that is just out cold for millennia soon becomes a forest as things start growing over him and stuff like that. And I'm sure there was like whole mythos built around like, oh yes, that's Behemat's foot, and it kind of became more allegorical than real as generations and generations just saw what looks like a natural formation. Now, if you don't know the end of this story, okay, like, so the story from the literal battle tome ends here. He just got knocked out, and that's how we found him in the Realmgate Wars. So I'm going to move into spoiler territory. For those of you who know about the Realmgate Wars or don't care, we're going forward. But essentially, Archaon wants to start using Godbeast to fight back against Sigmar. One of the ones he goes to is this comatose Behemat. Some of their actions begin to wake up the giant, and when I say that he is like literally laying down asleep, and then all of a sudden the mountains start to move because he's waking up and he's trying to sit up. Like, it's that kind of mythic size and scale that just is beyond reason. And right as he is trying very hard to sit upright, which of course would spell the doom of our Stormcast heroes and make things very, very difficult when it comes to the battle against Archaon. Basically a shot from Sigmar, like he double tapped him at that last second. And that secondary shot, a lightning pure from Azir straight to the forehead of Behemat, actually puts him down. And so the only story we ever had of Behemat in the thing is him going, wait, what? Where am I, man? What a crazy night. And then, and that's it. So that's why when the rumors were coming around about a Sons of Behemat book, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that guy got punked like episode 1 of this show. But I love it. So let's move into talking about why is this so cool? Why do I like this story? Why did I want to pick it? I'm just going to put it this way. This story bangs from the first letter to the last period. Okay? I'm just going to throw that out there. We got Titanic heroes. We got gods. We got dastardly villains. Morons aplenty. And Sigmar going full hammer time. All wrapped up in a nice little package that explains how the mythic figure that is Behemat just got to where he was when we met him. And I think it does a little bit of justice kind of concerning Behemat's importance, just because the stories preceding this, when he's alive and rampaging and stuff, he really does seem to be like a soldier of Gorka Morka. Not a soldier. Soldier's a strong word. Maybe just a follower. I mean, like everybody else is. Gorka Morka points him to the best fights. He goes there and he fights. So he is a soldier. And I like how this story ends on that note of like, you know, Gorka Morka, once it's all over, then he realizes he lost his strongest and most trustworthy ally. Well, yeah. I mean, but that's part of what makes we would know as orcs. Like, we like seeing other people get punched and crumped and all this kinds of stuff and taken down a peg to remind them why we are number one. But like, until like it happens, until he gets knocked down a peg and Behemat's not there, it never occurred to him like, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't have done that. I should have kept him on my side. And I do wonder what the implications were for this going forward, because, you know, when we say like the Pantheon broke apart, It's not a singular event necessarily. Alariel fell into a deep depression and went away at some point. Nagash didn't show up at the Battle of the Burning Sky, so he was functionally out. Gorka Morka got bored, basically, and didn't like being under the shackles of Sigmar, so he was already doing things on his own. Like, he already launched a big war and doing all these crazy things we talked about in the War Clans book. So I guess shattered the Pantheon is not the right word. Maybe like just afraid it. It just kind of came apart at the seams. Well, the thing is, we don't know a ton about what Gorka Morka did and what his story was within that. Like, we know that he is being at least whispered to by the Chaos Gods, but he doesn't have a story like Nagash, where Nagash went toe-to-toe with Archaon and got absolutely punked. Like, there's no after story. It's just, he did a big wah, didn't want to be a part of the Pantheon, and then just kind of went, peace, and moved away. But I would love to see more stories with him in this time period. The reason all of this is relevant, I'm sorry I went on a tangent there, to this story, is because I wanted to see more situations where having his, strongest and most trustworthy ally were important. Sort of a show don't tell thing, like going forward, what happened to Gorka Morka, starting in the Age of Chaos, all the way to now, the Age of Sigmar, what's going on with him now, and why would he have benefited from having Behemat there? And I really think that would be a fantastic kind of thing to go through. Because not only would it lend importance to Behemat, of course, for their battle tome and a great way to tell stories, but also it just gives us more information about the trials and tribulations of Gorka Morka, how chaos affected him, the realms that he went to, all that kind of stuff. So it would kind of fill in a deity's backstory as well as this Godbeast in a nice little bow, because they're so intertwined. All in all, it's a very simple, short, sweet story. It's just trying to kind of give us some context for how he ended up there on the ground. And you know what? I think it serves a good purpose for doing that. And if nothing else, I like that Behemat seems to be the one good character that just got done dirty in the mortal realms. Like, for example, he's just about his business without a care, eating his fill and getting larger with every passing winter. First of all, I respect it. Game respects game. I'm trying my best, man. But also, that is like the nicest description of any character in any Age of Sigmar book, like ever. And for that, it's a crying shame that he woke up all kinds of angry. But anyway, friends, that's just my thoughts. I would love to hear yours. Which part of this story did you like the most? And what would you like to see going forward as far as lore coverage for the Sons of Behemat, like in future battle tomes and stuff like that? Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.